Okay, some announcements. I want to thank you for trying hymn singing. Oh, Dallas, you missed us being the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Wrong. Okay, and look, while we're starting here, let's go around the room and say hello very, very quickly. Just introduce your first name.
Nick.
People over there need to see you. Say hi.
Hi, Nick.
Okay.
Margarita,
Rance.
Ian.
Judy,
Cecilia,
Odalis,
Serge.
Nanette, Karen, Tony,
Oscar.
Rowena, Lori.
All different names, all different backgrounds. My classes this semester had to say where they came from, and they go back. 40 countries were represented, 138 in another, and 26 in another. And then I said there was no wall. And then I'm gonna stop. All right, we are having a cluster meeting on the 19th. Unfortunately, I have a wedding in Key Largo, so I can't go. But if anybody wants to represent us, it'll be in Davie. Anybody who wants to represent us, just let us know, and we can do that. We obviously pay your way. And it's about how Sunday school, as most of us knew it, is no longer. Times have changed, templates have changed. So if anybody wants to go, I'll explain what it's about.
What day of the week is
That's Saturday, on the
I can
19th.
go.
And anybody who wants to go, you can, more than one, we're allowed representatives. So if anybody wants to go, we pick up the tab, we pick this, whatever it is, you just let me know, okay? All right. There are UU Worlds in the back, that's the magazine. If anybody wants a copy of what's going on for the last month for the larger part, they're free in the back. We want to thank Margarita, Rick, Serge, Ian, and Rowena for moving yesterday back into here. Rick wasn't feeling well, so I borrowed from the Church of England's Blessing of Throats. There is an actual service for the Blessing of Throats. I can say, unfortunately, it did not work. Even with an Anglo-Catholic voice, it didn't work. Grandparents' Day today. Did you know that? It's Grandparents' Day today. Are you a grandparent yet? Good answer. All right. We want to light the memorial candle today, especially for remembering the Bahamians. As you saw, there is nothing left of the Bahamas, and Abacus, is that right? Abacus? Abaco Island is, and it is. They were not prepared for. I don't think anybody was ever prepared for seeing a hurricane not move. In all of my life, I have never seen a hurricane just like stay in the same spot. I mean, they usually move, and 1 mile an hour is not. And it did not threaten Alabama, by the way.
Contrary to what some folks say.
Yeah. So I want to light this in memory of our brothers and sisters in the Bahamas, and any way you can give to support them in any way is certainly deeply, deeply appreciated. Our introit will be played by Oscar. You remember Oscar from last year? Oscar is an adjunct professor at Miami-Dade College and teaching music and voice and
Not voice.
just music.
Definitely not voice. just music theory and not voice. Anyway, thanks.
Good. All right. And he'll be with us. He'll be with us again most of the year again this year, and a couple of times he can't. Eileen will be able to fill in, so we're very, very fortunate. Jay, who many of you know, has had a breakout year and is playing virtually every weekend. So he's had a very, very successful. After all these years, it's been very successful. I mean, we keep in touch and stuff like that. Most of the band members are members here, but they've been very busy, and I'm happy for them because they put a lot of hard work into it. So if we could have an introit as we prepare.
Just so that you know, there's a key, a musical key called the Dorian scale.
No.
Oh, really?
And let's play in that key today.
This is an extemporaneous something in the key of Dorian.
Wow.
Really?
Greg.
Who knew?
Very somber.
Oh.
Sounds sinister, doesn't it?
Yes, it is.
Let us stand for our opening hymn, Be Now My Vision.
Be now my vision, O God of my heart. Nothing surpasses the love you impart. You are the star of my day or night. Bringing or saving your presence my life. Be now my wisdom and be my true word. Ever within me my soul is assured. Mother and Father, you are both to me. Now and forever, your child I will be.
Please be seated. Our call to worship is responsive, and I'll ask you to read the large print. As we begin our 13th year, let us affirm some principles of who we are. We affirm
The inherent worth and dignity of every person.
We affirm
Justice and equity and compassion in creation.
We affirm
Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation.
We affirm
A real and responsible search for truth and meaning.
We affirm
The right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and society at large.
We affirm
The goal of our community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
We affirm
Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are.
and for those who wish, a responsive morning prayer via Suffolk Mystic. Send your peace,
Which is perfect and everlasting, that our souls may create in peace.
send your peace,
That we may think, act, and speak harmoniously.
send your peace,
That amidst our worldly strife we may seek peace.
send your peace,
That our lives may come to vision of light that all hearts and men. Send your peace.
Amen. I'll ask Karen Paul if she would stand up and read two very, very different passages from the Hebrew Bible. And I hope to make a quick reference to those when I share with you later this morning. Karen, if you would, please.
You want me to read where they come from, or just?
That's fine, just read the
Just read the quotes.
Right.
The word of the Lord was rare in those days. There were no frequent visions. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart?
And our responsive reading, which I hope you'll enjoy, it's really annoying. Oh, we want to explain this, I'm sorry, we want to explain what we're going to be doing for the,
On behalf of all the masses of kids who are here, we would like to next week make an updated sign. It could be like this, it could be something else, saying a little bit about yourself, but we need everybody here at what time?
10:30, we're going to do a big
10:30.
arts and crafts thing.
Yeah.
To cut out
Service,
hands
right?
and put something on who we are, a name, make a big new one. For everything there is a season. That season has come. It's now time for a new
Yeah.
sign.
We're going to be doing one every 13 years. Thank you.
There'll be a big announcement about that, so we can early do
Bring
an arts and
in
crafts.
Mr. Schultz with you.
Our responsive reading. Again, I'll read and then ask you to read the big print. The state of ambiguity. That messy, greasy, mixed up, confused, and awful situation you're living in right now is enlightenment itself.
Brad Warner.
Most of us, most of the time, have a low tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty. It's paradoxical that the idea of living a long life appeals to everyone, but the idea of growing old doesn't appeal to anyone. The things you don't need to live, art, books, cinema, and so on, let go of certainty. The opposite isn't uncertainty.
It's openness, curiosity, and the willingness to embrace paradox rather than choose us.
That's the problem with truth.
Sometimes the truth is ambiguous.
Learning to live with ambiguity.
It's learning to live in how life really is, full of complexities and strange surprises.
And a reading from Scott Peck by Nanette, if you would please.
Abandon the urge to simplify everything, to look for formulas and easy answers, and to begin to think multidimensionally, to glory in the mystery and paradoxes of life, not to be dismayed by the multitude of causes and consequences that are inherent in each experience, to appreciate the fact that life is complex.
Grant us, we ask, to speak, to hear, and to learn, so that our fears may be banished, our minds may become enlightened, our faith be increased, and our steps directed towards you. Amen. One of the things that is absolutely, you're going to like this, annoying, is when I find a topic that I really don't want to preach about, but it's there. Because I find myself in the same boat, obviously, as everybody else, if not more so. I subscribe to this thing called Touchstones, and Touchstones is put together by the son of a very, very famous longtime Unitarian minister, Copeland, Kirk Copeland is the son's name. And it's a series of themes for the 12 months of the year with all kinds of resources. And it was basically meant for humanistic congregations. And I said, Kirk, you realize that you can apply this to anything? He said, really? I said, yes, we are humanistic and Christian and Jewish and typical the whole bit. And I said, this works very, very well. The only problem is when I come across themes that I see that I know I really should distress, but I don't want to, it gets me very annoying. In short, for me to talk about ambiguity is being hypocritical because I hate ambiguity. I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, okay, you know, I like things very ordered. I really do. I like to have an A, a B, a C, and a D. As much as I talk about live outside the box, I like to be sure I own the box that we're living outside of. That I can tell you the dimensions of the box. I can tell you the inside and the outside. So if you go outside the box, I know what the outside is. I'm making myself clear here. So for me to come up and act with some great wisdom that I know what ambiguity is all about is, in a sense, you can all look at me and say, oh, really? The fact of the matter is, and you and I know this, and this gets really annoying, is that life is full of ambiguity. It's full of paradox. And the thing that really is annoying, it's messy. That has been my mantra in the classroom lately, too. Life is messy. And those rare times when it's not, it's like something unique has happened. This is almost out of some of the things you gave me. Dallas sometimes send me readings and stuff. This is almost out of Woodward stuff, too, about how to adapt to the messiness of life. Gilda Radner. Some of you may have heard of Gilda Radner. Some of you haven't. She was on the first cast of Saturday Night Live and was absolutely nuts. I mean, she was an absolute great comedian. And she wrote, I want a perfect ending. And if I'd stopped with a quote there, I would have happened. But that's not Gilda. And this is the rest of the quote. Now I've learned the hard way that some poems don't rhyme. Some stories don't have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Then she writes, life is about not knowing, having to change, taking the moment, and making the most of it without knowing what's going to happen next. Delicious ambiguity. That drives me nuts. I don't know about you. I want to know what's going to happen next. I like to say, oh, jump out, go for it, go with the stuff, but I really don't mean it. But the fact of the matter is, you and I get caught all the time with things that we don't expect. We get caught with noises that we didn't expect. We find out things are messy. We had everything ready to go. It's not. We find that things are dual. We say, we were brought up, a lot of us, that, you know, everything is unified. But in fact, there's a lot of dualities. And reality is based upon a lot of these things, and ambiguity. Well, I was thinking relationships. Sometimes you don't get relationships well until you've had some disasters. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but I will say that when students have said to me, how did you navigate this whole thing of relationships? And I said, poorly. Any other questions? I said, this was not my gift for many years. And somebody said, but you've been married to Maria for 20. I said, yes, but if you subtract 20 from my life, There is a very long number of years there, which you might say I put making disastrous decisions into an art form. I said, sometimes some of us have to have ambiguity. Let me read you. We have long distance members who, by the way, contribute regularly, if not with money, with ideas. One of you you've never met, Mary Grimmy, lives in Tampa, and she writes all the time. Here's what she wrote about ambiguity and things about how you need both good and bad. She said, I thought of ambiguity while I was at the coffee shop. She saw the title, and she says, I was doing paperwork. The table across the aisle from me had two early tweens who were gender ambiguous. I continued to watch and saw that they were shy and really liked each other. Their awkwardness was adorable, and I was thinking back to myself at that age, not adorable. She said, I said a silent prayer that the obstacles that they faced were knocked down enough not to hurt them, but were knocked down not enough to hurt them, but enough that they would gather strength for what they will have to face in life. You have to be knocked down some to gain some strength. And she said it was interesting. They weren't ambiguous about each other at all. But that was interesting. That was an interesting thought. Things are going well, but sometimes you have to get some stuff happen before you clear things out. I'm thinking about dualities and ambiguity. I found that what I thought was a success in life, in terms of numbers and what was important, in fact, was not. And I'm wondering how often most of us have found that failure, in fact, opens the door to finding out who we really are. I find it absolutely ironic that I am happier with who I am now. And now, supposedly, in life, you go up a slope and down a slope. And the idea in the United States is once you go down the slope, it's all over. I have found just the exact opposite. I found really starting out was going down the slope. I found that the first several decades of my life was really going down, which I know doesn't make sense, but all the stuff, Grant, you are at that age now where things look good and not good. It gets confused sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah? Well, guess what? I felt the same way. In fact, I felt the first several decades were very confusing. It's interesting to me. I think we've got it inverted. I think we start off on the downslope, and if we're lucky and get enough mistakes, that clears out a whole bunch of junk, so the last years go up. So you're suddenly feeling free at last. You've come to know who you are. You come to accept who you are. You're at peace with the world. They don't tell you that. They tell you everything is for the young. There's that famous quote, youth is wasted on the young. I believe it. I'm just saying it's interesting that you have to have failures to do success. And I remember when I gave the last lecture at FIU, the first part of the lecture was all about failure. And people came up to me afterwards and said, you really had those failures? I said, dudes, you can't make that up. You can't make that up. And I said, the reality is failure is one of those dualities. To be successful, you have to fail. But successful not at numbers, at living, at finding out who you are. It's a strange thing. Here's another weird one. I don't know how many, some of you are night owls. Who here is a night owl? Anybody here a night owl? Okay, I love the day. But the reality is, I know down deep, if I didn't have the evening, I couldn't appreciate the day. I find that really annoying. Because I know if we had daytime all the time, I would forget how much that really means. Here's one for you. Joy. Did you know you need sorrow to appreciate joy? Rumi wrote this poem. It drives me nuts. Listen to this. I have my students read this when it comes time to world religion and Islam. Sorrow prepares you for joy. Think about that for a moment. That doesn't make sense at all. That's one of those messy duets. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that joy can find space to enter. I never thought about that. It's brilliant when you think about it. Sorrow kicks out everything. So what? It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. What a brilliant way of thinking of dealing with sorrow. I never thought of that. It pulls out the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow, hidden, that we may have never seen. Then we have our own religious impasses, thinking of mess. This is a riot. I was reading about religion impasses, and we had one happen here. Because this is being taped, I will not mention my colleague's name. but one of our colleagues, some of you may have been here when he was here, and he's coming back, by the way, in the springtime from Miami-Dade, was saying that it's very, very clear, he's made it very clear, he's an atheist, that's all there is to it. His family is evangelical on one side, Catholic, and he's had it. Then he came to us, he said, I have to share this with you, it's killing me, because you're the only people who get it. I can explain this to you and you'll get it. He said, I went to Machu Picchu. I get up there, the sun comes up, and I had, much to my utter horror, a religious experience. And he was telling us this, and he said, you're not laughing because you understand. I don't understand. How could you have that? And that's part of the life of messiness. We have these things we hold, we think make sense, and then something comes out of nowhere, and boom, that makes sense too. In other words, how can you have two things that make sense at the same time? Folks, it happens. It happens. It happens all the time. And I'm sure everybody here can talk about things. Yes, I believe this, but this has happened. It's really annoying because they're both true. Have you ever found about that? You start thinking about it, and it's annoying because you want things to be ordered. It's either this or it's that. But a lot of times, it's both and. And we're not prepared for that. You and I are not schooled that way. Am I right? Our education isn't like that. Everything is this or that. But a lot of times, it's both. Depending upon the moment, depending upon where we are, the context of how things happen. I'm thinking of one of our members here, who I feel like part of their family. We want our kids to grow up. We want them to have independence. And then they do. That's all I'm going to say. And then they do, and it's like, they're independent the way we brought them up. We brought them up to be good, self-secure, think for themselves, and when they do that, we're ready for intestinal disruption. They've done the very things that we brought them up to do. Our own life's journeys. I don't know about you. Have you ever felt like Melville? Melville wrote the weirdest thing. And have you ever stumbled across something in literature and you never forget it? Moby Dick is the size of a phone book. I never read the whole thing. I saw the movies, of course, and I read synopses of this. There is a weird chapter called the hyena. Why it is called the hyena, I have absolutely no idea. But listen to the first verse of this. This may strike some of you as, yes, I've been there. There are certain queer times and occasions in this strange mixed affair we call life, when man takes this whole universe for a vast practical joke. Though the wit thereof he but dimly discerns, and more than suspects the joke is at nobody's expense but his own. Have you ever had days like that? When you want to know what is, and then we do that old fundamental thing. What have I done so wrong to deserve this? As if somehow we have offended the gods or goddesses or whatever, and we, of all the universe, are being picked on. Don't we all do that? So we deal with ambiguity, and there are some suggestions that I read in Touchstones. Maggie Dugan. Do any of you know Maggie? She's evidently well known in terms of getting things started up and rethinking and things like that. She has some ideas, and they're really good. The problem is they're hard to do. So I want you to walk with me as we at least push ourselves that maybe one of these will work for us. Greg Bow said when we were teaching literature, he said, when you're teaching literature, he said, don't give people 10 things to do. If they can do one, and hang on to it. So I'm going to read a couple. See if one of these makes sense. Just one. Suspend judgment. I don't know about you. I like to think that I don't make judgments. I hate everybody, whether we like it or not. I walk on campus and I'm thinking, really? I think, where did you get? I mean, I look at hairdos, I look at shoes, I look at feet that look like a hobbit. I mean, I make all kinds of, in my mind. I asked my class the other day, when they talk about thought, word, and deed, and Zoroaster says you're judged by thought, word, and deed. I said, did any of you ever have thoughts you're glad that nobody knows what they are? And I said, now's the time for honesty if you're expecting to pass this class. How many of you have hands shot up? So I think everybody here, without even thinking about it, makes judgments all the time. And it's not that we do it on purpose, it's just that this seems to be part of the human psyche to make judgments. She suggests suspend judgment. Okay, that's one I'm giving you. It's hard to do. You get hit with something out of left field. The first thing is to say no. She says, try to hold off on that. I'm just reading these out because I think they're good. Maybe one of these will work for us so we can take it home. Number 2, she says, stay curious. I like that one. Stay curious. Something you didn't see, something that doesn't make sense, something new. Before you close the door, maybe you can learn from it. There's always, look, I'll give you a classic example of this. They say old dogs can't learn new tricks. That is simply not true. That is simply not true. Bunny Rodriguez came to visit the wizard and Sadie. Bunny has her own way of doing things. The wizard and Sadie had everything of doing things. In no time, they formed a unit, just like that. Within a day being with the wizard and Sadie, she was part of what's going on, walked, much to her owner's utter, she walks. The wizard went out she went, and I mean, for quite a hike. The owner said to me, she's not walking. I said, you need to borrow the wizard. Think you can learn new things. So stay curious. I started saying to the wizard the other day, where is your cousin? Now, I have to say one, if one is there, the other one automatically comes. This is brand new. They learn other things, which I won't go into, which are annoying, but the idea is old dogs can learn new tricks. We can learn new things. Stay curious. Just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean it's not cool or good or healthy. Number 3, she says, enjoy the mess. That sounds good. That's one of those things that I like. It sounds good. Enjoy the mess. How many of you, and don't raise your hands, when you go home and see a mess, immediately want to clean, push something here, maybe push something over here? Just some of you, yes, some of you, no. But when something's a mess, my first instinct is to unmess it. But sometimes that's not a good idea. Enjoy the mess. It sounds good, doesn't it? But I'm not sure. I think it takes some training to do it. Number 4, take time. De Tocqueville was writing here in the United States in the 1830s. In the 1830s, he said, Americans want everything done yesterday. That was in the 1830s. We wanted things done yesterday. He said they have no patience, no time. There's a Spanish phrase, and I know Odalis, whose name I always pronounce wrong. And Cecilia, you're Dominican? All right. So I'm going to get this, I'm going to say this wrong, but let's see if I can get it right. 2 words I say in my class all the time, because everybody laughs when I do this, because they do not apply to me at all. Paciencia y tranquilo. Is that right? Tranquilo. Okay. Patience and tranquilo means, yeah, be patient and be relaxed. Relaxed and patient. Obviously, those 2 words are great words. Somehow they've never migrated into my system. But they're great words. Enjoy the mess. Take time. It's hard to take time. You and I have agendas. We have things to do, thank you very much. You've got work on your mind all the time. You've got a new school. You've got a job you're involved. Everybody here is involved in stuff, am I right? I know all of you. Everybody's got things to do. It's hard to take. That's another. It takes time, but it makes sense. And then I have plan B, C, and D. Do things, see things, try things you wouldn't have done before. I want to read this list one more time because hopefully there's one thing or 2 things that we can try and remember the next time, because it will today or tomorrow, soon enough, be ambiguous, inexact, and messy. Suspend judgment, stay curious, enjoy the mess, take time, plan B, C, and D, do things, see things, try things we haven't before. Scott Peck. My name is Scott Peck, and a moment of theology, if I can. If, in fact, divine reality is everywhere, that means there's all kinds of things around us to help us. My suspicion is we block things because we're too busy. There are friends to help us. There are books to read, flowers to see, pets to enjoy. There are all kinds of things in the universe that are just waiting out there to help us. And if you believe that divine reality is everywhere and in everything, then we're just letting the stuff hang as we get ourselves all caught up in stuff. Now, Scott Peck, I thought was interesting. I never thought I would use him to end a share, but the words, I think, make a lot of sense. Abandon the urge to simplify everything. I like things simple. We see, abandon the urge to look for formulas and easy answers. The storm was not going to Alabama. And we're not giving out Sharpies today either. Abandon the urge to look for formulas and easy answers, and to begin to think multidimensionally, to glory in the mystery and paradoxes of life, not to be dismayed by the multitude of causes and consequences that are inherent in each experience, but to appreciate that life is complex and what a wonderful experience. Or maybe we've got it all wrong. The beginning is more messy than we realize, and when you come on the upslope, things begin in such a wonderful, exciting way that the mess becomes okay. Disorder is all right, and there are things around us to help us go on with a smile, and maybe even a little dance. Amen. Let us take a time for some silent thoughts and meditation.